Well, good afternoon, Prairie View Christian Church. Today is Wednesday, July 15th, 2020, and it's time for your midweek update. Last week we didn't have many announcements to make at all, so we just spent a few minutes in prayer. This week we don't have a ton of announcements either, so I'll be doing something different this week as well. But you'll see that here in just a minute. But before we get to that, we do have a couple small announcements. Number one, like we were saying every single week, we need you to RSVP for Sunday morning. So if you plan to join us on Sunday morning, please RSVP on the website. That's under the Sunday morning tab. It's very easy to get to, and it's very helpful to us. So if you plan to be here on Sunday morning, RSVP. And even if you don't plan to be here on Sunday morning, if you already know that for a fact, we welcome your RSVP as well. Even if you RSVP at 9:30 a.m., that's still helpful for us as we scramble around to get chairs set up in the sanctuary. So please RSVP for this coming Sunday, the 19th. Also this coming week, in a few days, we have our men's breakfast. That will be this Friday, July 17th at 7 a.m. here at the church. We'll be reading from Matthew 24. Joe Fenimore will lead that discussion, that conversation. You are welcome to join us here. It's bring your own breakfast, bring your own coffee, bring your own lawn chair. We will sit out under the awning and talk about the Bible and catch up on a Friday morning. We've had great weather so far. In the event that we were not to have good weather this coming Friday, we would find a way to adapt and meet somewhere else. So that men's breakfast is this coming Friday, July 17th. We hope you can make it there. Now, the thing I wanted to do today that's a little bit different that we haven't done in these past midweek update videos is in the sermon this past Sunday, I talked about the importance of sound doctrine. We started a sermon series in the book of 1 Timothy, and Paul, in writing to Timothy and in writing to the churches in Ephesus, really stresses the importance of sound doctrine. And the point of my sermon was that, hey, sound doctrine mattered back then to those Christians, and sound doctrine ought to matter to us today, we as Christians as well. So, in light of that, I just wanted to make a few quick recommendations. I talked about how knowing sound doctrine is so incredibly important because we can't truly worship a God who we don't truly know. We can't truly love a God who we don't have an accurate, sound understanding of. So it's incredibly important that we understand and seek and pursue sound doctrine, and that we are able to discern that sound doctrine from what could be called false teaching. So I've got a couple resources here that I think could be helpful to you. Feel free to purchase these on your own. If you don't have the means to do that or the time to do that, I'd be happy to let you borrow one. And if none of these really tickles your fancy, I'd be happy to give you other recommendations instead. So I'll start with this one. This is a classic, and it's backwards on the screen because this is Facebook Live. This is Knowing God by J.I. Packer. This has been a go-to book for Christians for decades. It is a wonderful introduction into who exactly God is. And it's incredibly important to have a good doctrinal understanding of who God is. There are lots of other doctrines that are important, but if there's one to start out with, it might be this one, knowing who God is. So this book is very easy to find. It's very affordable. Knowing God by J.I. Packer. It's been a classic for decades. So that's one recommendation I would give. A second recommendation I would give is a book that we actually went through a couple years ago as a men's breakfast. This is called Visual Theology. And again, it's backwards, but you can piece it together. What makes this book unique is that it goes through some really key, basic, important Christian teachings, but it does it in a way that is very visually appealing. So it has all kinds of really cool little illustrations in it, all kinds of cool graphics that may help you understand things a little bit better, a little bit more easily. If you're into this kind of thing, if you're into lots of flowcharts and graphs and colors and pictures, this might be a good resource for you. If you don't like the thought of sitting and reading a book that has nothing but big words for pages and pages and pages, if you're one who prefers to read books with pictures, like Tom Coors, for example, this would be a great resource for you to learn some sound doctrine and get a good introduction into some basic Christian theology. And now my third and final resource, if you really want a challenge, this is called a systematic theology. Systematic theologies are usually pretty thick. They are usually great paperweights. I try to read through one big systematic theology per year. And this is one that I found very helpful in the past. It's simply called Systematic Theology by Anthony Thistleton, a very well-respected theologian. He will give you all kinds of good perspectives from the past and the future on what we as Christians believe. He'll tell you what Christians 1,000 years ago believed, and Christians 500 years ago believed, and what Christians today believe. And you can read through this and ultimately come to a better understanding of what it is that the Bible teaches, what it is that Christians throughout many, many, many generations have always believed about God, and have always believed about ourselves, have always believed about our world. Again, this is a much more scholarly work. It's a much thicker, heavier book with lots of big words. But if you're looking for a challenge, if you have a particular interest in theology and doctrine, this would be a great resource for you. Systematic Theology by Anthony Thistleton. So, that pretty much covers our weekly update for this week. RSVP for Sunday, men's breakfast on Friday. You have your recommended resources for furthering and pursuing your desire to have sound doctrine and know the truth about God. One last thing I will add before we close our update for the week is that many of you, I'm sure, have been paying attention to the news and seeing the increase in coronavirus cases in other parts of the country, places like Florida and Texas and Arizona and California. And maybe you're concerned, and understandably so. That is a reasonable concern to have. On top of those examples in those other states, if you've been paying any attention to the numbers in Indiana, they've been slowly rising as well, which is concerning. It's not as dramatic of an increase as we have in those other states, other parts of the country, but there has been an increase recently in the state of Indiana. So, I just want to tell you that we as a church, as of right now, we plan to stay the course as far as our Sunday morning worship goes. We want to continue worshiping in person with our brothers and sisters in Christ because we believe that is what God calls us to do. If that means we have to wear masks, we wear masks. If that means we have to change our order of worship, we change our order of worship. If that means we can't offer childcare, then we can't offer childcare. But we believe that we are called as brothers and sisters in Christ, called as servants of God to worship the Lord in person on Sunday mornings. And we are going to do everything within our power to continue that. Trust me, we do not want to go back to March, April, May of recording YouTube videos and having nobody here at the church and having the sanctuary empty on Sunday mornings. That's why we've taken the precautions that we've taken. That's why we haven't loosened up any precautions. We don't want to go back to what we were doing in the spring. So, even though things are looking a little worrisome in other parts of the country, and even though things in Indiana could be on the uptick as well, we still fully intend to worship on Sunday mornings for as long as we safely and responsibly can. So, know that we are going to prioritize Sunday mornings, that we will do everything within our power to continue worshiping on Sunday mornings, but we also take your safety very seriously, and we will adjust as time goes on, and we'll make changes when we need to, and we will hopefully, Lord willing, prayerfully, continue worshiping in person for the foreseeable future here at Prairie View. So, with that closes our midweek update. Thanks for watching. We hope this is helpful to you, and we look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Have a great rest of your week.